Hi, I'm Alex Paul, and welcome to my studio tour with Gallery Le Mûrier.
What inspires your work the most?
That's a good question. I consume a lot of literature. At the same time, my dad is a very exuberant, imaginative person. So I think both everyday life and whatever art I'm consuming will often get translated into some image that's usually caricatured.
How has your work evolved over time?
Probably become a little bit more influenced by Venetian school from about the 15th and 16th century. When I first started, I was more focused on very, very early Renaissance, kind of medieval art, which I think is still really incredible and valuable from a learning standpoint, but I'm starting to lean a little bit more towards the slightly more realist, without overdoing it, school of thought.
Can you describe your process from idea to finished piece?
The point of the process, for the most part, is to make sure that you capture the essence of an initial idea. Every idea has kind of a life force behind it. And so my process is trying to capture that and then maximize it to the greatest extent possible. So what I do is get an idea and I'll take that idea and I'll iterate on it maybe 50 times using really small sketches that are abstract. And what I'm trying to do there is capture kind of the emotion of the idea abstractly. And once I get a framework for the idea, then I'll blow it up into a bigger picture, black and white. And I'll try and resolve all the little nuances and details, again, black and white. Hand gestures, facial expressions, how big someone's nose is, everything. And that'll be a finished piece. It'll be a black and white finished piece. And then from there, if it's a good enough idea, I'll expand it to a painting. And that involves another emotional step, which is color. So again, I have to go through 50 iterations or so of different color combinations to find the one that best services that idea. And then I'll paint it. And again, I think the main thing that I'm trying to do is take an idea and just maximize the original kind of life force or essence that idea had. I'm trying to push it to the top of this pyramid.
What's something people misunderstand about your art?
It's interesting. When people look at art in general, they think they understand why they like it. And it usually has to do with the objects that are in a painting. They like the way someone's face looks, or how muscular someone is, or how beautiful a woman is. But as an artist, when someone likes your work, you actually understand why they like it, and it's not for the objects. It's usually for the composition. It's for how those objects are arranged, kind of abstractly. So it's interesting, as a kind of a realist artist, you realize that what people like doesn't have a lot to do with the realism. It has more to do with the abstraction, which is ironic because realist artists are often very obsessed with likeness and making things look real.
Do you prefer working with certain colors or materials?
Yeah, I prefer working with graphite. The reason for that is graphite has a certain sensitivity. You can control tone very, very, very nuanced with graphite. And it also doesn't have a huge tonal range. You can't go super dark with it. So it creates these sort of imaginative, surreal atmospheres. And then when it comes to color, I work with oil. Oil is very dynamic. You can change mistakes. You can play with texture. You can play with transparency. I think it probably has the most power, like expressive power of any medium.
How do you balance personal expression with public interpretation?
I don't think about public interpretation really at all. The reason I make art and I'll continue to make art is just because I have ideas that I feel like I have to express. I'm not super concerned with what people think about my art. I'm more concerned with getting this pressure out of my chest.
How do your surroundings or culture influence your work?
I grew up in a family that has European roots. They have nobility in the family. They have 2 Nobel Prizes. Grandma's father and my grandfather, on the same side's grandfather. So these 2 people got married, both have Nobel Prizes like right above them. There's a famous explorer, Adolf Erik Nordenskjöld, and he was a Swedish explorer, the first to sail from Sweden around the Northeast Passage down into Japan and then back around Africa.
Wow.
And his ship was frozen in ice halfway through. There's a famous painting. It's in a museum in Sweden somewhere. And I used to visit my grandpa on that side of the family, and he had all these artifacts in his house, old coins, a piece of a ship, gifts from the Emperor of Japan, leather-bound books from the 16th century, and paintings, really, really good paintings in his house. So I have kind of a nostalgic appreciation for the old traditions. They're mysterious to me. They're things that I think have been lost and can be explored today.
What role does symbolism play in your compositions?
Symbolism is everything. I don't think the power behind art lies so much in the object itself. It really lies in our primitive feelings that we feel about the world.
Are there specific mythological, historical, or literary references embedded in your imagery?
Sometimes, yeah, sometimes. That usually happens if I'm thinking about something in the world that aligns with something mythological, like a book I'm reading. I recently completed a painting that has the story of the Trojan War embedded in it, and specifically a scene from, I think it's book 3 of the Iliad, where Achilles and his men are not going to fight. They've refused to fight in the war, and they're sitting on the shore with a grudge, just brooding and hoping that their comrades lose this battle.
What is the significance of the halo or the light behind Achilles' head?
I look at a lot of classical art for inspiration, and one of my favorite painters, Tintoretto, uses halos not only to show that somebody is saintly or a god or a demigod, but also just to accent a certain part of the painting. So if he wants you to look at somebody's head, he can put this bright light behind the person's head. So I'm doing that both because Achilles is a demigod and also because I want you to look at this point in the painting.
What moment are we witnessing?
For me, it's really a moment of tension. This culmination that the book is written around of Achilles and his men. Achilles is holding a grudge. He's refused to fight. And some of the Greek gods want him to fight, other ones don't. Some of them want him to win, other ones don't. And so it's this point of contention where Achilles is on a rock looking at Troy in the distance, and ultimately he will fight, and it'll get pretty brutal.
What does the white cloth on the spear signify?
It signifies the fact that Achilles won't be fighting. It's a sign of peace from his standpoint. He's not a very peaceful person, but that's the symbolism, and to be honest, it's also there just as a compositional anchor. It needed to be there to balance the painting.
So can one assume the balance between the white cloth and the holding of the helmet is a balance between peace and war?
Yeah, exactly. They're on opposite ends.
In the piece Écossaise, what emotions or tensions do you sense in the interactions between the figures?
This piece is all about love, different forms of love. I came up with this idea after being away from my hometown for 8 years or so, and I ran into an ex-girlfriend, and I could see a shift in her life that was, it's like going in a time machine into the future, 8 years forward. And it made me realize that love has these different phases. It has young love, young naive love, there's elderly love, there's love between children, there's familial love. And I could see that she had moved into this new phase, so I wanted to capture this different world of love between human beings.
What does the title Écossaise refer to in this context?
I listen to a lot of classical music, and there was a piece called an Echo Suisse that I had heard. I thought it was very beautiful, and it sounded like this idea. There's some parallel, and I guess it's a Scottish dance form that a lot of different composers have played. Chopin has played it, and I forgot who played the one that I liked, but it sounded like people in love. This is a fallen statue, a fallen idol, and if you look carefully at the piece, it's hard to see at first, but there's a whole pile of objects, of accumulated objects, things that we strive to obtain in life: money, power, recognition, and all of these objects are piled up in front of a dam. If you look carefully in the back, there's a dam, and that dam is holding water. It's holding what these two characters in the front are looking for. They're digging a well, but they can't see it. It's obscured by these things that we think will make us happy, that we want, but are sort of a diversion from what we should be focused on.
How do the figures' expressions relate to one another? Grief, obsession, ecstasy?
The gestures, I think they actually relate to one another in terms of how each character is connected. I want to show what one character is thinking or feeling relative to another character. So again, I'll try and do that through contrast of gesture or facial expression or the shape of a person. The shape of a person will give a lot away about their emotions. And then I try to make sure that the gestures sort of flow together as well. So you have to connect these people. If they're completely disconnected, something looks wrong. It looks like I had all of these separate ideas, and I photographed all these different people, and then I painted all these separate people together. So I need some way of connecting them, making them look like they're living in the same world.
Talking about the Moirologist, what was your inspiration behind that piece?
My dad, who's satirical in the way that he sees the world. I think he sees the world as a cartoon in a lot of ways. And he would always make fun of people who complain too much. He'd use the tiny violin analogy. And I'd hear that over and over as a kid. And somehow I had an image of it one day. So I wanted to have these violin players that were exaggeratingly emotional and sad. And I looked it up, and I had heard about it actually. There's a professional mourner that you can hire, and this used to be a commonplace thing in most of the world. It's not so much anymore, but in certain parts of the world you can still hire someone to cry at your family's funeral, for instance.
Notice the interlocking limbs and twisting spines. What kind of movement or weight do they convey?
This piece, I'm trying to convey a falling movement, almost like a falling leaf from a tree, or multiple falling leaves. So there's one or two figures at the top, and these figures fall down into an intertwining grouping of other figures and drapery and hands and feet and faces. So it's almost like a leaf falling into a larger pile of leaves.